Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, presented by the Chargers Podcast Network. My name is Steven, and I am your host, as always, and joining me today is my guy, Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Excited to get into these game-by-game predictions. We're, 100 days from the season starting? I'm excited.
Yes, officially 100 days out. I miss football so much. There is, I watch NBA basketball and I watch some hockey, but nothing really compares to football and just like the immersive nature to it, man. I love football, so excited to have everything back in a few months. I mean, training camp is right around the corner, which is the good thing about the NFL. That's we get a nice little lead up to the season for the NFL. So, like Tyler said, today we're going to be diving into each game on the Chargers schedule, kind of outlining the teams and where they stood last season, some of the additions and losses heading into this 2023 season. This is going to be a very similar format to our game previews. For those who have followed the show for the last few months, you'll recognize kind of the format that will dive into things, and then we're gonna kind of attack it from the angle of how the Chargers could win or lose each of those games, and give hopefully some valuable insight into each of those teams and how the Chargers might have advantages or disadvantages in those matchups. Tyler, any other thoughts before we dive in today?
Nope, none from me.
All right, sounds good. As always, we are fans of the Chargers, just like you guys listening. The opinions that we express on this show do not always reflect 100% of the opinions and views of the Chargers organization. We are very grateful for this opportunity and this platform, but we are independent content creators at the end of the day. So very grateful to be here. And as always, before we get started as well, make sure and give a subscribe, a comment on this channel, and make sure and go check us out on the Guilty as Charged channels as well. So that being said, Tyler, let's share our screen here, and then we'll dive into the Chargers schedule. Again, we'll go game by game because obviously the division, this is not going to be 17 weeks. We're only going to talk about the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Raiders once. So really we'll have basically 14 slides here to officially cover. All right, so first and foremost, we'll get to the Miami Dolphins in week 1. We'll get to some of their additions and key subtractions here, and then we'll talk about where they were at last season. Obviously, making the playoffs last year as the 7th seed. As you see here, the Tyler's screen that he has prepared. Rational Media Week is definitely the key thing there. So, Tyler, obviously, like we said, we're about 103 days out from this particular matchup. What's your kind of thoughts here as we get headed towards this matchup first and foremost?
Yeah, that the Chargers need to beat this team so I can stop hearing it from all the Dolphins fans on Twitter. Goodness gracious. So the on-field stuff matters more. As I said, as we've discussed previously, this game is really important to me because you win this game, and I actually would believe in this team a lot more heading into the season, heading to the rest of the way, because that means that the defense was able to repeat. That means that I'm sure early on Kellen Moore's offense was looking pretty good. So this is a really big game for the Chargers, even though it's only one game. This is a big one because this is a really tough offense they're going to face, and their defense should be a lot better.
Yeah, week 1 narratives are always interesting to me because it's like, you guys beat us last time, but we're going to be healthier this time. It's like, you don't think the Chargers are also going to be healthier in week 1 this time around? So, the media attention, I think, is going to drive a lot of the narratives here. But just diving into some of the key additions and notable losses for the Dolphins this past offseason. Obviously, you have to start with Jalen Ramsey, Vic Fangio. That's kind of the headlining duo for them. Didn't have a ton of draft picks, but Devon Achane, certainly a notable addition here. And then some notable losses as well. Tight end Mike Gesicki, wide receiver Trent Sherfield, former fan favorite of the Chargers, Melvin Ingram, and then, of course, Byron Jones. Tyler, what's kind of your expectation of the Dolphins as we head into 2023?
I think I was higher on them than you were. I figured that the Dolphins would be closer to the playoff contender team. I think you had them, as a kind of like an average-ish team, but also because the Jets were going to be that team that took the leap forward, maybe, not the Dolphins. I think because of that Vic Fangio addition, because of the Jalen Ramsey addition, and because their offense, regardless of how you feel about the quarterback, kind of like San Francisco, they're almost quarterback-proof. Maybe they're not the best in the league, right? That still requires a Patrick Mahomes. but they can be a very, very, very good offense because of the floor that's set by the offensive coordinator. And, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, those guys help quite a bit. So I think this is a very, very difficult team, but it really does all come down to that quarterback in this matchup, and I feel a little bit better about ours.
Yes, that's definitely for sure. In terms of 2022, obviously finishing second in the AFC East, which is honestly a pretty loaded division now. Well, there's a lot of AFC East teams on the Chargers schedule, obviously. Dolphins finishing 7th in EPA per play. That's estimated points added last season, and then 24th on defense. So the Dolphins pretty clearly felt like the defense needed to be addressed, and that really is kind of the key point for me as I look to how the Chargers might win or lose this game. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on the quarterback matchup and on the receiver matchup and things like that. But the last time we saw Vic Fangio go up against a Justin Herbert-led offense with a top-tier corner, obviously it was Patrick Surtain's rookie season, it wasn't Justin Herbert's best day. There's some statistics out there that Justin Herbert has done pretty well against the Vic Fangio tree. Not every Vic Fangio disciple has a guy like Jalen Ramsey or Patrick Surtain. So, we're 103 days out, obviously. But for me, like the key matchup that I'm interested in this game really is like how do the Chargers go about attacking Jalen Ramsey and the Dolphins secondary and making sure that they end the possessions this time around with touchdowns, because obviously that was the key reason why the game ultimately was close last season, was that the Chargers left too many points on the board, too many field goal attempts, and this time around, how do you go about finding mismatches with that Vic Fangio-led secondary, and Jalen Ramsey is really kind of the key thing for me right now.
Yeah, they certainly won't make it easy, but last year you could see, not that it's this simple in the NFL, but when they targeted the end zone, things worked out well. Granted, you have Mike Williams that will really help you there quite a bit. So, listen, they got another tall receiver, Donald Parham. Hopefully, at this point, is also going to be healthy. So, yeah, I would expect things to be better on offense, at least more consistent and finish out with touchdowns this time around. They're going to have to. I think the performance the Chargers gave against the Dolphins is fantastic. I could see it being very close to a repeat. But, again, as we saw literally in that game, of course, it wasn't really anybody's fault, but they were 2 plays in, and they scored 2 touchdowns for just 2 freak plays. Someone fell, someone fumbled to pick it up, suddenly they had 14 points, which is not going to happen again, but I also don't expect the Chargers to hold the Dolphins that well again, so they're going to need to finish on offense, for sure.
Yeah, I'm expecting a little more of a normal matchup on Chargers defense versus Dolphins offense. I think they're going to have a lot of time to prepare for the Chargers defense, and I do expect Brandon Staley to have some things to say there. But if the Chargers are going to win this game, to me, like the offense has to really come out swinging, and I think this is really where we'll see Kellen Moore start to show his influence more so than the defensive side. So on the opposite side of things here, Tyler, how do you think, or what do you think has to happen for the Dolphins to win this game?
I think they have to finish what they didn't do last year, which I feel like, and this is partially because Justin Herbert was just a wizard that game, but they were winning pretty consistently at the line of scrimmage. They just weren't finishing plays because Herbert was just magic. There's that one play where he was able to step out of pressure, and he didn't throw it for whatever reason because he sensed something behind him. Really just a rare trait that he has. The Dolphins just weren't able to finish. A lot of the guys at the line of scrimmage were playing really well against the Chargers. They just weren't finishing. So if the Chargers want to make this work, they have to continue to pressure Herbert, of course, but they also have to finish those plays as well and put them in bad situations.
Yeah, I remember the key takeaway from that Dolphins defense that day was that Christian Wilkins was a beast, and Jalen Phillips was also very, very good. I want to say Jalen Phillips had double-digit pressures that game. Obviously Rashawn Slater and Trey Pipkins did not play in that matchup, or certainly, Trey Pipkins was at least not healthy. I can't remember if he played or not that day. But Jalen Phillips is, I think, going to be one of those guys who takes another step forward in his development this year. Obviously, you have Bradley Chubb as well on that defensive line. So this is going to present some challenges for the Chargers offensive line. Like we feel really good about that unit right now, but that's going to be a really good opportunity for them to show really how much better they can be from last year.
Yeah, yes, I would agree, although it's very early with the offense. I think we're going to talk about a game later that I think is going to be the official swing point, I think, for this offensive line to show me where they're really at.
That's fair. I mean, it's going to take some time to gel. Obviously, you're talking about a lot of guys moving positions and things like that. Even though there's going to be some continuity in terms of personnel. Obviously, we're talking about a left tackle moving to right guard and a right guard moving to left guard. Excuse me. So it could certainly take a couple games. Yeah. All right, let's get to week 2 here. Next up on the schedule for the Chargers.
Do you want to pick a winner from that one, or a win-loss for that one?
I don't feel comfortable making win-loss predictions at this point in time. I don't know about you, but we can if you want to.
Okay, I'm doing it because why not? I'm calling a win for that one. Win in week 1. I'm believing in it.
All right, I'll say
it's game by game predictions. We got to make some sort of prediction here.
Okay. You're right. I'll say a win that one.
Okay, cool.
All right, week 2, Tennessee Titans in Nashville. Mayo in coffee, definitely disgusting. I don't know where that atrocity came from. So Tennessee Titans finishing 2022 with a 7-10 record, 3rd in the AFC South. Some notable additions. They changed GMs this year. Obviously, the season did not go as planned. So Rand Carthon coming over from San Francisco made some big waves in the draft, taking Peter Skoronski, Will Levis, our guy Tyjae Spears. Not a huge free agency spending spree, but Andre Dillard, Arden Key coming over. Really, their offensive line in general, tons of turnover with that unit. Taylor Lewan retired. Ben Jones, I think, is still a free agent. And then Nate Davis is in Chicago right now. And then Bud Dupree, Robert Woods also departed here. So, Tyler, where do you think the Titans are at heading into 2023?
They better hope that the cyborg, Derrick Henry, from the Chargers schedule release is ready to rock. And I feel like that kind of was the case last year as well, but the defensive line held up so well. But I'm very curious to see how the quarterback situation is handled at this point, because I really don't know. Do they feel like, are they going with Tannehill? Are they going with Levis? I can't say that I follow a whole lot of Tennessee Titans news or football. I really just am curious what they're doing that week, and really that's about it. But this offense is just, they're in a transition period, and I think the defense is always going to be solid with Vrabel. They're going to play hard. There's no doubt in my mind this is going to be a close game, but I just don't know if that offense with Treylon Burks leading the way, who I really like, I just don't know if you know enough about him at this point. Like, to me, Treylon Burks, not quite the same comparison. Different players, different skill sets, but it's like if Quentin Johnson were hurt half the season last year, and that was his rookie season, and then he was a wide receiver 1 for the Chargers this year, and also they had Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Like, I'm not sure how great I'm supposed to feel about that offense. I love Chiggy Okonkwo. I think he's going to be fantastic. But otherwise, like, this offense was 26th in EPA per play last year, and before Arjun kills us, it's expected points added per play, not estimated. So, Arjun, before you have your panic attack, I'm saving you. I know you're going to tell us something.
My mistake.
No, you're good. I just think the offense is just, I don't know what to make of it, and I don't think the Titans are going to have that answer by week 2.
Yeah, I would expect the Titans to run the ball a lot. Derrick Henry still very good. He's approaching 2,000 carries. He's got 1906 on his career, so it's a lot. I mean, his 2022 was certainly better than his 2021. There was a slight uptick in yards per attempt, but really you see the difference in yards after contact per attempt, which was 3.28 in 2021, but 3.60 in 2022. So a nice little jump up there. He had 37 explosive runs, according to PFF, as opposed to 20 in 2021. So he was certainly better than he was in 2021. And then you also had Tyjae Spears. You have a lot of uncertainty with the offensive line. You don't really know who the quarterback is, although I think Tannehill will start against the Chargers. We'll see who finishes the season for them. But I would expect this to be an opportunity for the Chargers to really prove where they're at on run defense, because I would expect this to be a 30 kind of carry game for the Titans running backs. And, this is going to be an important matchup for Sebastian Joseph-Day, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, all those guys to show what their rebound story is up front. And obviously, you mentioned Eric Kendricks versus Derrick Henry as one of your most exciting matchups here as well.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. Sure, against the Dolphins, you can see some run defense, and hopefully they play well that game too. But yeah, this is the game. It's the Derrick Henry game. That's the one that you have circled if you're looking for how is your run defense against an elite running back who's still a very good running back. So yeah, big Eric Kendricks game, hopefully, and hopefully they can win up front. We'll see what the status of their defensive line is, who's back in time. Seems like Austin Johnson will be able to be, playing out there no problem. Otito Ogbonia seems kind of up in the air at this point. So we'll see who's even out there for this game to begin with.
Yeah, so that's really how the Chargers could potentially lose, is that the Titans just pull the Chargers back into a dogfight matchup like they seem to always do every single week, and Derrick Henry pops off for, a buck 90 and 2 touchdowns, something like that. I would expect the Chargers to win this game, but if the Titans were to win, that's how it is on the shoulders of their run game, as they are so well known to have done over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, and I think this is a good game for Brandon Staley, even though the defense held them last time, but as like a whole, they won the game, all right, against the Titans, but Vrabel is an excellent head coach, one of the best in the league, regardless of who is quarterback of the situation. This team fights very, very hard. I think we sort of compared them to the Steelers as well. Like, for whatever reason, you look at the end of the year, and somehow they're a good team, and somehow they're decent in the standings every year under Vrabel or someone like Tomlin. So be a very good game for Staley to go, at this point, 2-0 against Vrabel, just to show that, like, they still got that coaching edge, because it was, like you said, it was a dogfight last time they played. It came down to, an excellent throw to Mike Williams. That was kind of a very well-calculated hero ball, prayer ball sort of thing. But again, Mike Williams is the 80-20 guy. So yeah, it came down to really one big play at the end to set up, I believe it ended up being the game-winning field goal. So I don't expect this to be, the Chargers are a much better roster, but Vrabel's a heck of a coach. They're going to fight. They're a good defense. And last time they played the Titans, Tannehill got hurt on the third play of the game. So they were trying to figure out, was Willis going in? And then Tannehill comes back out. He's hurt. They had other guys that were hurt. So it's going to be, I think, a different game. At the same time, the Chargers should be much healthier, including, the whole rib thing of the quarterback and half the roster being on IR. So I like the Chargers' outlook here. I think it's a win as well.
I do as well. Path to victory, pretty self-explanatory to me, is you got to have an explosive day on offense and be able to not allow the Titans to dictate their terms on your team. So absolutely, come out, be aggressive, go for it on fourth downs. I think that's pretty self-explanatory one. All right, we'll get to week 3 when the Chargers will travel to Minnesota. Their NFC counterparts, feels like every single year the two have very similar stories and players and outcomes on a week-to-week basis. So lots of turnover on the defensive side of the ball for the Minnesota Vikings heading into 2023. They did win the division last year. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, had something to do with that. Really kind of a middle of the pack team though. When you look at EPA per play and as well as DVOA, you kind of see 18th, 16th. That's really kind of their story. So making a big change on defensive coordinator with Brian Flores. They're going to go from one of the least blitz-happy teams to the most blitz-happy teams with Brian Flores, which I think is going to be fascinating to watch. You draft Jordan Addison, Byron Murphy, Marcus Davenport as their notable additions. And the notable losses, obviously Eric Kendricks is with the Chargers, Adam Thielen's with the Panthers, Zadarius Smith with the Browns, Dalvin Tomlinson also with the Browns, and Patrick Peterson with the Steelers, I believe. So a lot of departures from their defense. Where are you at with the Vikings heading into 2023, Tyler?
Yeah, there's no question the offense is going to be solid. We'll see what happens with Dalvin Cook. It sounds like he's headed for a release, though we're not entirely sure just yet. And while the game really will come down to the offense, I just think that defense is significantly worse than it tends to show sometimes statistically. I know it's 16th in EPA per play here, but there was a point in the middle of the season last year where, again, Arjun brought up that the Vikings are complete frauds. And I said, no, like they're doing pretty well and they're winning these games. But there was something in the stats that was just ballooning, what the outcomes were, what the stats were. And sure enough, I'd pick the Vikings in our, win-loss segment every week. And I think the Vikings lost like 4 out of 4 times for me. And it was always a heartbreak sort of thing, right? How could the Vikings find a way to lose this week? And they found a way mostly because their defense wouldn't hold up their end of the bargain. So, I think the offense will be solid. I think Addison is a fantastic addition. I think him and Jefferson present 2 guys who can get open doing so many different things. So I think that's a really, really good unit there. I just don't know if that defense, Flores is fantastic. And I think just the culture change could do so much for that defense, just the way things are going to be run. But then you lose someone like Za'Darius Smith, so you take a player with, 80 pressures last year, and 10, 12 sacks or whatever it was. Now you take him off the Chargers' schedule entirely because they traded him. So I just think that defense is going to be a bit of a work in progress. It is already not good as is, and I think it's going to take some time for them to really click and gel and be what they want to be. So it's a solid team. It won't be an easy game. At Minnesota is going to be difficult. Justin Jefferson is really, really good. And he certainly showed that the last time that they played the Chargers. So it'll be a dogfight. But a lot of the games for the Chargers to begin the season, Chargers have the quarterback advantage. And it's like a clear quarterback advantage, even though it's a good, solid quarterback in Cousins in a solid system.
Yeah, I think the path to victory here is really avoiding a shootout, because like you said, I don't think the Vikings defense is really going to be able to do a ton to slow down the Chargers offense. They'll blitz a lot, and that could certainly cause a potential, turnover here and there or something like that. But just on a play-to-play basis, that defensive roster is pretty rough. So you look at their offense, and that's going to be their path to victory every single week for the Vikings. Is let's just drag teams into shootouts, and maybe we'll get the ball last. So that's really the key to victory for the Chargers in this game. I am going to circle this as a potential loss. I know it's, I would love to have a hot start, but traveling to Minnesota, you're playing an early game. I think this might be an early loss for the Chargers after, coming off the first two victories.
Yeah, I'm going to seem like a complete homer to start this whole thing, but I think they're going to win this one because, again, it comes down to the quarterback versus quarterback thing, and I just think the Chargers defense can do more, knock on wood that they're healthy, than this defense can. So I believe in the quarterback more and their defense more. So I'm going to start this whole segment sounding like a complete homer. I promise I'll find some losses. But honestly, I have a 3-0 start, which is weird because then they're about to play Vegas, and that's kind of definitely a win to me at this point because they have no idea who their quarterback is, which is not good heading into June, who you're not knowing who your quarterback is going to be.
Yeah, so for those who might have missed that, apparently Jimmy Garoppolo did not pass his physical, and the Raiders have inserted a clause into his contract that if he doesn't pass his physical, I believe before training camp was the thing, that they could cut him outright and not have to pay him a dime of his contract money that he is owed. So family trust respect is going to be a really interesting offseason storyline with the quarterback situation. Brian Hoyer potentially starting this game, maybe Aiden O'Connell. I don't know. This could look very, very different. Raiders in general, they've had a ton of roster turnover. You look at the losses, obviously, with Derek Carr, Darren Waller, Matt Collins, Foster Moreau, Rock Ya-Sin, just some of the key ones. I mean, you're talking about one of their best quarterbacks ever, and then probably their best tight end ever. I mean, I don't know Raiders history a ton, but I mean, Darren Waller's been a great player for them recently. So has Derek Carr. Bringing in Jimmy G, Jacoby Myers, Tyree Wilson in the draft, Michael Mayer in the draft, David Long, the corner from Rams. I put DeAndre Carter and Trey Tucker on here. I feel like it's just gonna be one of those, honestly. Right. But tons of roster turnover here. Really, it's hard to say what to expect with them with the Jimmy G stuff kind of hanging over us right now.
Yeah, my dad's a Raiders fan. I think he thinks they're going to win like 4 games, and that was before Jimmy G his issue. So I don't know what his expectations for them are this year, but yeah, man, I really think there's a part of the season where, again, Jimmy G might be healthy and all might be good, but they travel to Vegas as they've done the last 2 years, and they might drop that one because the Raiders are competitive. AFC West, it's competitive. It always is, always has been. Herbert, Rivers, you name it. Like, just it's been that way for the Chargers.
Sure.
But if they literally do not have a quarterback who's somewhat, no offense to the other guys, but Jimmy G can at least, I'm assuming they brought him in because they believed he could run the offense as best as they could. And in theory, they believe he can do that over Derek Carr. And now you might not have him. I mean, heck, is he even healthy by the time they play this game? Maybe there's an injury early on in the season. He's just a kind of a liability for them. So I could have seen them stealing. This is the home game for the Chargers. I could have seen the Raiders stealing this one at their house in Vegas, but man, this Raiders team, the defense ain't great, and their offense has no quarterback. So I don't really know much about the prospects this season, and I think this is, again, a win for the Chargers because I mean, if Tua or Tannehill versus Herbert was a mismatch, I think Hoyer versus Herbert is a huge gap. I mean, I guess it sort of is for Jimmy G too, but yeah, Hoyer. Yeah.
I mean, I understand why the Raiders would be interested in Jimmy G, but
sure,
we really only saw him start like 2 games in Josh McDaniels' offense. Like it's not like we have a ton of proof that Jimmy G can operate this offense at a really high level. Everything we've seen from Jimmy G has all been Kyle Shanahan's offense. So I think there is some degree of uncertainty here. I think they had the right approach with the skill players. I mean, at least in terms of the wide receivers, I think trading Darren Waller is a ridiculous move. But you bring in Jacoby Myers to upgrade over Matt Collins. I understand 100% why you do that. You have Devontae Adams, you have Hunter Renfrow. I like their receiver group. We'll see what Michael Mayer is, but I think he probably fits what Josh McDaniels probably wants at that position more. But if this is Brian Hoyer, man, like this could be a blowout. Like honestly, like I don't see a Brian Hoyer led offense putting up more than 17 points on the Chargers at home. Like I think this is almost regardless of what happens with Jimmy G. This is like, how do the Chargers go about matching up with Max Crosby? Trey Pipkins did a really good job in week 1 last year. I think Max Crosby only had like 6 pressures in that game, and the Chargers were really able to move the ball because of that. So that's the key to victory, in my opinion, is don't let Max Crosby ruin your day on offense.
Yeah, and he almost did, and he does. Like I hate him, but he's so good because he does wreck the tight ends, tackles, you name it. He's just really darn good. And he showed last year, even with quote unquote, low pressures with 6 of them, he still had 9 run stops that game. Just a complete menace. So, yeah, you slow him down if Tyree Wilson hasn't come on yet, or you can stop Chandler Jones. I'm not saying that's the only key to victory, but that's if Jimmy G's not looking so hot, and it is Hoyer, it literally just comes down to stopping their 2 pass rushers, and you got yourself a potential big win for the Chargers here.
Yeah, so I'll have this as a win as well. So I have the Chargers at 3-1. You currently have them at 4-0, correct?
What a homer. Yep, that's me.
All right, bye week in week 5, which I'm not a big fan of, but is what it is. We'll get to week 6 next here. Chargers obviously taking on the Dallas Cowboys again at SoFi Stadium. Should be an electric matchup here. Tyler, why don't you take us through the state of the Cowboys right now?
Yeah, so they were a really solid team last season as is, although they've lost Kellen Moore, so thanks for that. I guess we'll know at this point how their offense is looking, and I mean that for the Chargers and the Cowboys. So they got their addition in Brandon Cooks. That's a really solid 1-2-3 for them. They add Stephon Gilmore, and then to an already very, very strong defensive front, they spent a first rounder on Mozzie Smith, who you loved. I really liked. Very, very solid player. But they don't have Kellen Moore. They don't have Dalton Schultz. Ezekiel Elliott, we'll see if that's technically a downgrade, but he was a big part of their offense for years. So we'll kind of see how that works. And then Connor McGovern is gone as well. So this is a team that was very good last year. They will definitely lean on their defense this year. But Dak Prescott, that offense, that running back, the line in general, if they're healthy, and that receiving core, it's a really, really solid group. This is not going to be an easy game for the Chargers. At this point, I'm more worried about this game than any of the games we've talked about so far.
Oh, I 100% agree with that one. And I think there's a lot of narratives about Dak Prescott around there, but I think he's up to this point the best quarterback that the Chargers will have played. And that's honestly pretty easily in my opinion. And he likes to take shots, man. Like he's more aggressive than he is given credit for. He was 7th in ADOT last season, according to PFF, among quarterbacks with 50% of their dropbacks. So I think he can really operate an offense, but he's an underrated big game hunter too. Like he's gonna take shots downfield, and they added Brandon Cooks to this unit as well. So they have a similar vibe now with this receiver group that they did in 2019 when Amari Cooper was there, and CeeDee Lamb's rookie season. Or wait, would that have been 2020? That might have been 2020. Yeah, 2020. Sorry. So you get Brandon Cooks in here as one of the best deep threats of the last 4 or 5 years to take some pressure off of CeeDee Lamb, who can work in the slot, work out wide. So we know that Dak Prescott is going to want to throw the football downfield. The question obviously is McCarthy coming out and saying that he wants to run the ball more. He wants to be more of a line of scrimmage team, and he wants to, give his defense a rest from time to time. So that's going to be interesting. I still think the Cowboys are going to want to throw the ball a lot, and I think their quarterback will want to do that as well.
Yeah, I don't anticipate this is a game the Chargers suddenly get up by 3 touchdowns, but I mean, you can run the ball you want, but I'm assuming the Chargers are hopefully going to be scoring this game. I just think at some point, not that you abandon the run entirely, but you can't just sit there and, okay, we'll give our defense a rest and we're going to run the ball more. But then, oops, the Chargers are completely controlling everything. And the offensive coordinator that we let go because he scored too many points, whatever that means, he's now scoring too many points on us too. So what do you do in that scenario? We'll see. But they're a team that has the firepower, has the line, has the running back, has the quarterback to really keep up with the Chargers. This is a tough one for me. I don't really know how this one will go. There's certainly a benefit to the Chargers having a bye before this because if there's an adjustment that's needed, they could make it. If there's a player that was hurt coming into the season, they have that bye week, and this could be the game that J.C. Jackson is playing for the first time. I don't know. So it's a tough one, man. Like this defensive line, again, we talked about it before, added Mozzie Smith, but had 202 pressures generated last season as a defensive line, which is nasty. So I don't know where I lean with this game. At home is nice. After a bye is nice. But that's close enough for me to consider them a win here. But I think at some point, it's so tough. Where are you leaning on this game? Because I don't know yet.
I'm a little bit more on the optimistic side. I don't think Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott is really enough of an edge for me. Mm-hmm. Like I think that the Cowboys defense is fantastic, and they added Stephon Gilmore too, who we haven't really necessarily talked a ton about. So you get an aggressive defensive line, an aggressive secondary. That's kind of the path to losing. The Chargers just kind of have a bad day on offense, just kind of gets away from them. 3, 4, 5 sacks on Justin Herbert, maybe an interception or 2, maybe a fumble. That's the path to losing this game because that's the Cowboys' defensive MO, right? Like that's what they want to do. They want to heat up the quarterback, get turnovers. But Justin Herbert is the least turnover-worthy prone quarterback in the league over the last 2 seasons, in terms of turnover-worthy play percentage on PFF. So I think I lean a close win for the Chargers here, but I do think that this is going to be a lower scoring game than people would think heading into this game because Mike McCarthy wants to slow the pace down, wants to run the football, and then the Cowboys. I keep on saying the Dolphins. The Cowboys defense is really, really good and can heat up Justin Herbert maybe more so than other teams. So this to me, I would predict maybe like a 2017 Chargers win right now.
Okay. Only because I watched training camp last year. And granted, Trey Pipkins is a different player, and the line's different, and everything's different. But that Cowboys defensive front, I think, what did Daniel Popper say? 10 or 11 or 12 sacks during that practice on the starting offensive line of the Chargers. It was not pretty. And again, adding Mozzie Smith, it really feels like best on best, right? This offensive line versus their defensive line. But as good as the Chargers' offensive line is, their front could be even better. So I'm going to say tentatively a loss here, but it's very easy for me to convince myself why they could win, and especially with that Mike McCarthy point and no Kellen Moore. So I'm going to say loss here, but I think ask me again in week 5, week 6 when I'm predicting this, could totally change my mind. But I'll say loss for now.
Yeah, I think there's a world where the Cowboys offense kind of struggles out the gate and rounds into form. But we know that defense is going to be really good from the jump. So I understand that. Yeah. So we're each at 4-1 for the Chargers coming off the bye week at Kansas City Chiefs, a place where they've had some good results, some bad results. Tyler, why don't you take us through the Chiefs offseason?
Yeah, Chiefs are a good team. They won the Super Bowl. I hate them, but they added Jawan Taylor.
Kind of a successful season, I guess.
Yeah, fine. Donovan Smith, Wanya Morris, that's a really solid tackle group moving forward. Richie James, and then they drafted Felix Anudike-Uzomah and some guy named Drew Tranquil they added as well. Really solid defense, I think, overall. Their offense is just going to be good because it is. I thought their offense was going to take a step back, and then they were the best in the league by a wide margin and won the Super Bowl and took it to the Chiefs. Or the Eagles, excuse me. So until proven otherwise, that's the best offense in the league because they got the best quarterback and arguably the best head coach, certainly one of the best play callers in the league. Losing Orlando Brown, I think it's more of a wash. I think you think it's more of a downgrade for them. Wiley's gone, Thornhill's gone, Frank Clark, Juju Smith-Schuster, McCole Hardman, all gone. Again, I just really don't think it matters. It comes down to, how many hundreds of yards does Mike Williams want to have in Arrowhead? Because for whatever reason, he's just a completely different player there. Me personally, it's weird to feel like the Chargers could win in Arrowhead more than at home. But I think this is the year that sort of flips, where I think they're going to drop this one in Arrowhead and ask me again at the end of the season about their chances at home in SoFi.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting dynamic. But they won at Arrowhead in 2021. They should have won at Arrowhead last year. If Justin Herbert doesn't get hurt, they probably do win that game. So it's an interesting dynamic that I would be curious to dive into. Path to victory to me is, it's not simple, right? But the thing that makes Patrick Mahomes so great, among and many other things, is that his pressure to sack percentage is the lowest in the league over the last 3 seasons. He's consistently right around the 10% mark, which is elite playmaking ability at the quarterback position in terms of avoiding sacks. So can you get home against Patrick Mahomes? That's kind of the biggest difference for me. They did that in 2021. Some fluky turnovers for sure, but that was a big Joey Bosa game. That was a big, Drew Tranquill had some pressures. Obviously, Drew Tranquill's not in this game anymore. But we've seen the Chargers be able to almost get there in some games, and whenever they are able to get home, that's kind of a big thing for them. So the other thing too is obviously you got to stop Travis Kelce. If this turns into another day where Travis Kelce's running free and Mahomes you can't get home, then of course the Chiefs are probably going to win this game. But if you're able to truly get home on Patrick Mahomes, you can shut down Travis Kelce a little bit more that way, then the Chargers definitely have a path to victory there.
Yeah, some of the best defensive performances they've had against the Chiefs, outside of when they had Nwosu, Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa together, was getting that interior pressure. So some of that, when they won at Arrowhead, was Drew Tranquill, is moving Joey Bosa inside. That worked. Last year, Austin Johnson absolutely turned it on, was fantastic in the interior of that game as well. Hopefully he plays this game. So the interior pressure to create that pressure to turn that into a sack would be fantastic. But yeah, the last time we saw the Chargers play the Chiefs, it was incredibly frustrating to watch how a shallow crosser would go for 40 yards, and then another one would go for 30, another one would go for a touchdown, and it didn't matter. Sure, you want best on best, but you always can't get that. But at the end of the game, you have Travis Kelce and Derwin James, and Derwin James just, couldn't hang in there at the end. Not that it's always on one person, but just couldn't make it happen in the end. So, yeah, there's a loss for the Chargers for me here, but I think it's going to be close as it always is. It'll be awesome to watch. It's going to be a great game. I just think they dropped this one.
Yeah, I think I agree with the end result there. So we each be at 4-2 at this point. All right, Bears at home, primetime game. Tyler says he has no jokes there, but this is a roster that has had a ton of turnover. They entered the offseason with $100 million in cap space. They spent some big money, obviously making a big draft trade as well. Adding in free agency or trade DJ Moore, DeMarcus Walker, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Robert Tonyan. And then in the draft, you're looking at Darnell Wright, Gervon Dexter, Roshan Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson. I actually really like their draft a lot. Not as many notable losses, but you're talking about David Montgomery, Riley Reif. Most of their big losses came in the trade deadline last year. Obviously, they traded away Khalil Mack, but you trade away Roquan Smith. You trade away Robert Quinn as well at the deadline. So that really was their big thing. This is obviously a big season for Justin Fields and what he looks like in this season. So path to victory for me is pretty simple in this one, and that's don't let Justin Fields get out of the pocket.
Exactly.
Easier said than done. But Justin Fields, opposite of Patrick Mahomes, had the highest pressure to sack rate, and not in a good way, last season. He had the longest time to throw as well. So this is a very important game where you want to keep Justin Fields in the pocket and force him to, go through his progressions and hopefully get home in your pass rush. And if you do that, I just don't think the Bears roster has enough pieces on defense or offense to really make me feel like this is a game I'm necessarily super worried about. Again, it's May 30th. This could certainly change. But this is pretty much, can you keep Justin Fields in the pocket? And if you can, I think you'll win this game pretty easily.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100% there. Nothing really to add at that point. The Bears, our team, working through some things right now. Their draft is awesome. I think they had a really solid offseason.
Yeah.
Is that enough? I don't think so. So, yeah, this is a win for me as well.
All right, so we're each at 5-2 at this point. We'll get to the next matchup here when the Chargers will travel to the Meadowlands on primetime. Big T Swift fans. I love that. If you're not paying attention to that, obviously, we can't help you. But Aaron Rodgers, obviously the big storyline. We talked about him pretty heavily last episode. But Tyler, who stands out in terms of additions and losses for this Jets team?
Well, Dan Feeney has a notable loss. I just have to point that out because he's on.
I had to put him on there.
I really just think that they got some decent guys on offense that they can really work around. I'm not saying that they're world beaters, but it's kind of like the dramatic change is not by really one addition, but just several ones. So, you add Tippmann, fantastic. Oh my goodness. You add Lazard, you add Hardman to your receiving core. I know you lost Elijah Moore, which kind of breaks my heart, but I hope he's freed somewhere else. You add Randall Cobb. We didn't have him on here, but he is there. It's just going to be a really solid group. Israel Abanikanda to go with Carter, to go with Hall is such a fun 1, 2, 3 in that room. I even think Knight was Knight drafted by the Jets as well, and he had a really solid season, I believe, in terms of like per play stats. So it'll be a good offense. Like that offense ain't going to be 30th next year. I think almost by default, I feel like it won't be 30th next year just because they don't have Zach Wilson. So, not like, okay, other than Aaron Rodgers, no real big addition, but again, he's the quarterback. So that's going to be the deciding factor here. Tough game. I think a tougher game than we're used to seeing when the Chargers play the Jets. I take that back. The last time they played the Jets, it was a shootout for some reason, even though they had Joe Flacco.
Oh, yeah.
We won't talk about that.
Tavon Campbell pick 6 game. That's right.
Yes, the Keenan Allen 142, receptions game. So, yeah, it'll be a close one. I think this is a win, though, for the Chargers.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting matchup. I mean, Garrett Wilson is probably one of the ascending wide receivers. I think if you look at most of the numbers, he's right around the top 13, top 15-ish. One of the better yards after catch threats in the league. He was 13th in yak per reception last season. So we've never seen this Chargers defense go up against Aaron Rodgers. The last time Brandon Staley went up against Aaron Rodgers, it was a very interesting chess match in Lambeau in a playoff game. And, Brandon Staley has talked about how playing against Aaron Rodgers in that game has really kind of, opened his eyes, so to speak, I guess, in terms of like the amount of like high level mental play you have to have on defense because Aaron Rodgers was just so dialed in. So the Jets are going to be significantly better on offense. It's impossible not to be, going from Aaron Rodgers, going from arguably the worst quarterback situation in the league to Aaron Rodgers, even if he might be on maybe a slight decline, is still a huge upgrade. So I am nervous about this game because the MetLife turf is not great. Prime time on Sunday Night Football. This could be a really fired up Jets crowd. So I'm probably predicting a loss here.
Ooh, so you're gonna go 5-3 for the Chargers. I would get it though. That defense is really solid. Offense is gonna be solid.
There's a thing that we have talked about in our group chat that Justin Herbert, like his potentially worst matchup is cover 3 defenses, and that's obviously what Robert Saleh does a lot of. Detroit Lions ran out of blue background colors. Tyler, why don't you take us through the Lions offseason?
Yeah, they went ahead and added all the notable positions of value in the draft with Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta. Those are very good players. I'm just surprised at the direction that they went.
Yeah.
In terms of notable losses, Jamal Williams, DJ Chark, DeAndre Swift, Michael Brockers, and then Jeff Okudah being the big one because he was like the guy in the draft, the cornerback, surefire player. Now he's gone. So this is a team that I think could be good. They added some really, really solid players on both sides of the football. It's hard not to like someone like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, etc., that's going to be a heck of a better defense. How much better is really the question. And then at this point, like, have they gelled back together after some of their suspensions? Are they still working things out? I don't know.
Yeah, this to me is another game where it's like, what are we getting from the Chargers run defense? Because the Lions have the most creative rushing attack, maybe outside of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Lions are right up there with them in terms of how they can attack you on the ground. They get David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs. That's a great 1-2 punch, in my opinion. They have a fantastic offensive line. So if the Chargers were to lose, I think we're losing the line of scrimmage day. And so how do you feel about the Chargers maybe counteracting the power, explosive run game of the Lions? I think is probably how you determine this game.
Yeah, it slightly reminds me, just a creative rushing attack reminds me of how the Chargers started against the Rams last season, where the Rams were like, hey, we have Baker Mayfield, we're not in this anymore, but by golly, we've got a creative rushing attack that we can throw at you. And for 3 drives or so, if it went for Morgan Fox basically taking over and ending those drives back to back to back, they were moving pretty well in the run game. And I think that this team, especially with Penei Sewell, I'm kind of excited to watch them run on the Chargers because their offense is so much fun and Penei Sewell is so good. So I think this is going to be a tough one. Detroit Lions are always a team, just like they're not a great team ever, but their offense is just so good. They retain their offensive coordinator, which is huge. So this is actually a game I think the Chargers are going to lose, only because I feel like, I don't know, that they can dig deep and do something, and that this rushing attack is going to be really, really strong. And this is a team that can keep up with the Chargers in a shootout.
I don't know if I buy that last part. I understand why you would be hesitant from the line of scrimmage standpoint. They should have Jameson Williams back in this game. But I don't know if like a shootout in terms of like skill talent and Jared Goff is really how the Lions win this game. To me, this is like who controls the game, the game clock, pace of play. I think that's who wins this game.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it.
So I do think the Chargers could maybe pull the Lions into a shootout here, and I think that's how the Chargers could win. This to me could be like Chargers versus Browns, 2.0.
Yeah.
From 2021, I should say, to clarify there. But I have a hard time buying into Jared Goff coming across the country and winning this game. So I actually have a win here for the Chargers.
Technically, Jared Goff did spend a lot of time on this side of the country.
I know, but you talked about quarterback play. Like I think Herbert versus Goff. I think Herbert makes more plays down the stretch, and I think the Chargers probably win that game.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm at 6-2.
We're both at 6
You're
and
at
3.
6-3. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So week 11 at Green Bay. Again, a team in transition here, going from Aaron Rodgers. We'll speed up the pace here a little bit here. We're almost done, but tons of turnover on the defense and obviously on the offense with Aaron Rodgers, Alan Lazard, and Randall Cobb in New York. Robert Tonyan, we already mentioned him. He's in Chicago. And Mercedes Lewis, I kind of expect him to end up in New York as well, one of Aaron Rodgers' guys. So lots of youth on offense with Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Jaden Reed brought in on offense. Lucas Van Ness, chalk pick for the Packers on defense in the first round. And they added Jonathan Owens in free agency, which is really like the only free agent move that they made. So I would expect almost that those numbers on EPA just basically flip. I think the Packers defense is going to be healthier and better, but I think the offense is obviously going to take a pretty big step back without Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, not much to add there. It really does come to that Jordan Love guy. We'll finally see him. It's so weird that it's taken this long. Well, I guess if you're drafted by the Packers and you have Rodgers in front of you, it takes a bit. Sure. But yeah, Love versus Herbert. I know it's not exactly that, but that should be a fun one. Not super late in the season. Hopefully the weather holds up. If it's snowing and things are really hazardous, maybe I change my mind, but I just think that the Chargers got this one.
Yeah, this could be like a Chargers-Falcons game where it's like early kick, not necessarily a super difficult team, but just kind of like a game where the Chargers might not be super up to their usual speed just because of the time, because of the location. So I think this could be a little bit closer than people think, but The Packers don't have enough on either side of the ball to make me kind of feel nervous about this game. So I would have them a win as well, which means we're both sitting at 7-3, heading into Week 12 against the Baltimore Ravens.
And the Baltimore Ravens mostly just added on offense. So Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers, of course, Nelson Aguilar, trying to make things worth. They did lose Ken Francis in free agency. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what happened with that. Some turnover on the defensive side of the ball, but overall, the commitment was to the offense, to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Of course, adding their offensive coordinator.
I forgot to put Todd Monken on here. That's my bad.
No, it's all good. There's a lot to put together. But yeah, they'll be better on offense naturally because Lamar Jackson will play and he'll have weapons around him and they'll move out of a completely different system. It's far enough in the season where they should have established themselves as whatever offensive identity they wanted to, change to. So this is a rough one. The last time I saw the Chargers play the Ravens, it was ugly. And that was the year that, the offense with Joe Lombardi was good. And this game, there was just an absolute terror out there. Although mostly that was a right tackle issue, I feel like. But the Ravens brought it, and it's a well-coached team. They're always good. A lot of these teams in the AFC North are good. So this one worries me. If the Chargers can't handle the pressures that the Ravens throw at them, like they couldn't the last time they played, it's kind of game over. I mean, you saw the Chargers get stuck in the mud that game. It was incredibly frustrating to watch. And if Lamar Jackson didn't just throw 2 interceptions to Kaiser White, it would have been even more of a blowout than it was. So
Sure.
This one worries me. I do think the Chargers end up losing this one only because I just think that's a very good team on both sides of the ball with a very good quarterback and a solid system and a solid coach. So I think this one ends up being a loss, but, could change my mind.
Yeah, could certainly change things once we get to this point, but I'm always nervous about the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, I think, is one of the most underrated players in the league, which is weird to say about a former MVP. But, I mean, this team was very, very injured last season. Obviously, Lamar Jackson missing games. And they were still a 17th and 14th kind of team.
Yeah.
They were like a play or two away from beating the Bengals in the playoffs with my guy Tyler Huntley at quarterback.
Yeah.
Really could have gone either way in that game. And I think people will be talking about them very differently. So I think this is right when we'll see the Ravens start to hit their stride on offense too with all the changes. So I share your nervousness about this game as well. I have this as a loss.
Yeah, me too. We're still at 7-4 at the same record.
Yeah.
And they traveled to New England in Week 13. This is fun.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Nice.
Yeah, thank you. Big LaDainian Tomlinson quote. So the notable additions: Bill O'Brien, notable loss; Matt Patricia. Just by that alone, I feel like the Patriots will be better. That defense was outstanding last year, and then they got Christian Gonzalez late middle of the draft, which is disgusting. So I think this is going to be
too.
Get traded down for him. So we'll see about the offense. I think not having Matt Patricia as your play caller will naturally help that offense out. It'll be a solid group, not a great group, but playing in New England, that team has had the Chargers number forever, and that defense is outstanding, and it just got Keon White, Christian Gonzalez. So I had this one as a loss because Bill Belichick, man, and the Patriots have just beaten the Chargers every single time, unless Brady's not playing or wasn't playing.
When was the last time they beat the Patriots?
Mid-2000s. Whenever, was it Castle? I think it's probably when Brady tore his...
Yeah. That would have been 2008. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Sense.
We're in 2023, so we'll see if
this game were in LA, I would probably feel differently.
Yeah.
I will never predict a Chargers win at Gillette Stadium. It's just one of those things,
Yeah.
Until they prove it, I understand that. The path to victory, obviously, Justin Herbert has to play out of his mind that game because the Patriots defense is incredible.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we highlighted the Denver Broncos in terms of one of the biggest moves of the offseason, bringing in Sean Payton. Will the offense be good? Will it be bad? That's obviously one of the big storylines here. So additions, you get Ben Powers, Mike McGlinchey on the offensive line, Chris Manhertz, the blocking tight end from the Jaguars, Samaje Perine. I think Sean Payton was sending a message that he wants to run the football in 2023. Losses, obviously, Nathaniel Hackett, Draymond Jones, Dalton Reisner, Billy Turner. This is the game in Denver, correct?
No, this is a game at home.
Okay, so this is the home game, so the Chargers will win this game because that's how things work.
Yeah, okay, great. We're on the same page. Let's move on.
All right, so we're both at
8-5.
8-5 right now. All right, we'll head into the next one. Sorry, trying to speed things up here as well. I know we're running a little bit long. So at Las Vegas Raiders, I'm going win there. I just think the Raiders are going to be bad. So I don't know about you, but I do think the Chargers will sweep the Raiders this year.
Yeah, I love how our analysis now is just Raiders are bad, so they win. But I mean, that's you're not wrong. We just talked about it. So yeah, I think this is a win as well. We have them at 9-5 so far. We're getting close to that 10-win total, and we play the Bills next.
All right, home game against Bills. This is the Saturday night Peacock game. It should be an electric tailgate. I hope, honestly, if you are picking a game, I would say pick this one to go tailgating. It should be electric. Second and seventh in EPA per play last year. Just an incredibly sound team overall. Additions, Dalton Kincaid, my guy, Osiris Torrance in the draft. Then they also drafted Dorian Williams to replace Tremaine Edmonds. Signed Connor McGovern, Taylor Rapp, Trent Sherfield. So some solid signings, but nothing outstanding. Really, the thing with the Bills this year is they're losing Leslie Frazier, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league over the last few seasons. Mm-hmm. And McDermott is going to be calling plays. They don't even have a defensive coordinator. So it's going to be a really interesting dynamic there with going from one of the best defensive coordinators to head coach who hasn't called plays in a long time, kind of taking over that unit.
Yeah. I'm just staring at the part of the slideshow where I didn't write their 2022 record, and that's all I can think about. They were good last year. I know, shucks. We made it this far, and I finally make my mistake. They're still trying to figure out, apparently, what to do with Dalton Kincaid, according to Ken Dorsey. He's like, I'm not really sure what his role is going to be, but we'll figure it out.
Should probably have planned that out before you took him in the first round and traded up for him.
That makes me feel like somebody upstairs made that call because, I mean, Tom Telesco said with us that they thought they were going wide receiver the whole way, and suddenly they go get a tight end that they're not really sure about. I feel like somebody else made that call on that one. This is the game. I'm actually going to pick the Chargers to win this one. I think this is a nasty, awesome game. I think the environment's going to be fantastic, and Herbert rises to the occasion. There's just kind of something about these comparison games for Herbert where he rises to the occasion. I know he's not on social media all that much, but there's something about these games, man, just a little bit different. I think this is the statement win of the year for the Chargers. Arguably the statement win of Brandon Staley's career if he wins this one, because this is a heck of a team.
Yeah, it is a heck of a team. Josh Allen versus Justin Herbert, man, this is going to be an electric matchup. Mm-hmm. I think the Chargers have a little baked-in advantage here as well, playing at home. Short week for the Bills. I tend to agree. We're on the same page about a lot of things tonight.
Wow.
So I think Justin Herbert, just like you mentioned, he has something extra for these games. I think this is really when we'll start to see Quentin Johnston come on in a strong way as well. Mm-hmm. So I agree. I have them winning this matchup as well. So we're at a 10 now, right?
10-5 each. We made it to 10 wins and at Denver.
And that's a loss because it's at Denver. That's how things work.
It's disgusting. So it's a cursed land. I hate it. At Denver, it's going to be weird too. Like something weird's going to happen. Yeah. Someone's going to like kick the football and someone's going to score. Of course, that's called a field goal. But I mean, like they're just score a touchdown for some reason. I don't know. At Denver's a cursed place. I hate it. It's going to be a loss. And people go, what? You just said they beat the Bills but lose to the Broncos? Yeah. At Denver's cursed. I hate at Denver.
It's the weirdest thing, man. I don't know what it is. The last 2 years, I felt really confident heading into the games at Denver, and then just disaster strikes. I don't know what it is about that place. Yeah. So home against the Chiefs here. Where are you at with this game? You kind of said leaning more towards them beating the Chiefs at home, but now that we're at this part, where are you at?
They're going to squash a tomato and catch up in the division. They're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, although I think the Chiefs will have like the divisional record at this point. I will predict the Chiefs to win the division, but I think at home, Chargers need this to get to some spot in the wild card, and I think they'll win this one. Heck, at this point, if the Chiefs are the number one team in the AFC, maybe they don't care about this game. The Chargers will care about this game for whatever reason. I think they're winning this one. I'm going to basically predict the Chargers to split with the Chiefs. Really, every year we have Herbert and Mahomes. I think that Arrowhead will be close. I think this game will be close. It'll come down to whoever has the ball last. I think the Chargers will finally get that win at home against the Chiefs that they've been looking for with Justin Herbert.
Yeah, potential Blaine Gabbert game. I think this game will matter. I think it will because I think the Chargers will do enough to keep it relatively interesting with the Chiefs this year. So the Chiefs, I think, have a harder schedule this season, obviously with the first place schedule as they always have. But there's some games that the Chiefs, I think, I'm a little bit more hesitant this year than normal. But I agree. I think the Chargers get this game. Likely a must-win game, win and in kind of situation like we're used to over the last few years. I think the Chargers do just enough to get into the playoffs and win this game. So we both have 11-6. So 1 game improvement over last season. It's kind of Brandon Staley's MO right now.
Yeah, there we go. We did it. 11-6. Feels fair. I started off as a complete homer and then had them losing to the Lions randomly because, stuff happens. So, yeah, it feels fair. 11-6 seems solid. It suggests belief in the team. Just not better than the Chiefs this year just yet.
No, I think that is a fair assessment. And then once you get into the dance, anything can happen. I think we've seen that time and time again with the AFC playoffs. I mean, the Bengals were underdogs to the Titans in 2021 in that divisional matchup 2 years ago. So anything can happen once you get in. You just got to get in. I think the Chargers do just enough to do that. Difficult schedule, but I think everybody would be pretty happy with 11 wins for the most part. We'll see what ultimately happens. So that's going to do it for us. We overshot our estimated time limit. So thanks everybody for sticking around. Thanks, Tyler, for adding some great insight and doing the slideshow for the most part. And thank you for Brian and the Chargers for producing this episode. As always, like I said, make sure to check us out on our own feeds at the Guilty as Charged Podcast, 17 on Twitter and all social media platforms. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys next time.